How did you meet Billy Milano? Because he lives in Austin now, and Jason and I have known him for years, and obviously he played a significant part in your musical life. Do you remember the first time you met him?
It would have been one of those intimidating going down to CBGB's hardcore matinees where Agnostic Front and the Psychos are playing, and Billy played bass in the Psychos. The drummer was also named Billy, so he was Billy Psycho, so Billy was Billy Milano, and that's what he still was. But that was one of those things where me and my friends, metalheads, would go down to these CBGB's hardcore matinees and see these skinhead hardcore bands because we liked the music. It was, fast and noisy. And we'd be a little intimidated and apprehensive, like, oh God, I hope we're not going to get the shit kicked out of us by these big beefy skinheads. But then we get there and they'll be like, hey man, you're that guy from Nuclear Assault. You want to go out and burn one? You want a beer? Blah, blah, blah. We're like, oh, okay. And that's how I met people like, yeah.
That's cool. They were paying attention to what you had going on. So that's awesome.
Yeah. So they knew what we were doing, and we were also like, okay, we'll live another day too.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is how I met Billy. So when Scott called me up and said, do you want to play in this fun hardcore band? It's going to be me, you, Charlie, and this guy, Billy. I'm like, oh, I know that dude. Yeah, that guy can do it, because we just knew him as a bass player. Said, I'm sure he could sing. I'm sure he could fucking do it, Sorry, the other cats just showed up, getting distracted.
That's all right.
So you did the Stormtroopers of Death, the Speak English or Die album. That record, it stands as one of the most influential and also one of the most controversial. So what's the greatest compliment you've ever gotten on that album, and also the biggest criticism you ever got on that album?
The biggest compliment was like before it even came out. Scott, Ian, and I were in Washington Square Park in Manhattan, and Exodus was in town for some reason. They must have been playing some shows or something. Maybe even with Nuclear Assault, because I was around the same area when it was recorded. And me and Scott were hanging out with, do you remember Rick Hunold, the original guitar player?
Yeah.
And we were in Washington Square Park with him, and we had a boombox and the fucking advanced tape, because it's 1985. So you had an advanced tape, literally a fucking fancy ass TDK, the good ones. Not the ones with the red on the inside, the ones with the gold or the Max L or something. And we're like, hey, dude, and of course, Scott didn't partake, but me and Rick blazed a bunch of weed. And then Scott was like, hey, man, you want to hear this fucking advanced tape of this project we were doing? And he's like, sure. And then as soon as he heard that, Rick's eyes, which if you look at the back of Bonds by Blood, are usually pretty fucking bugged out Homer Simpson, kind of like as it is, expanded even more. And the point being, we saw the expression on his face, and he was going like, holy shit. And then we realized that, we'd done something that was going to have a killer impact. As far as the most negative stuff, that's really just people who misunderstood it and thought that we were a bunch of fascists or racists or whatever like that. And those people we were intended to piss those people off. So it just more sucked when somebody who we respected, who was like actually smart, was offended by it. And we were like, dude, we're just kidding. They're like, oh, okay, whatever.
Yeah. I think about that album a lot, coming out in 1985, and then you look at it think of the times today.
The old cancel culture topic. Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, on the one hand, when it came out, I think people were a little less uptight and people actually saw the humor in it. But at the same time, you didn't have the internet. So unless you were a metal kid or a hardcore kid digging through the bins at the local record store, a lot of people didn't really hear it. It was underground. Now it's readily available in multiple formats all over the world, and the world is a much more uptight place. So it's like, would it stand a chance today because it's more readily available, or would the cancel culture cancel it out versus back in the day? people were probably a little more tolerable and saw the humor in it, but a lot of people couldn't find it necessarily.
Well, what would probably happen if people had the balls to do that today, which, of course, I would, applaud, is that if people misunderstood it, it would be much easier to explain. We're just having some fun. However, you'd have to balance that with the uptight nature of today, where people would just be like, "Oh, well, that's still not cool, man."
Right.
So it probably wouldn't make it. It would probably be, frowned upon horribly. So no matter how much you went to the trouble of saying, "We're just trying to be obnoxious," that you just can't do that now. And I'm proud of that record. I don't have any regrets about doing that, because if you couldn't tell we had a song about not having milk in the morning when you were hungover. So if you couldn't see the big picture, that it was really just having a laugh and being decidedly obnoxious and provocative without really, it's a band with like 2 Jews in it,
Yeah.
I was going to
went platinum. It went platinum, right?
Well, not officially.
Not officially?
Well, no. We kind of took a little poetic license with the definition of platinum.
I love
that record sold 1 million copies over the course of the time it's been out to whenever that was. Recently, but all over the world in all territories. An official platinum record has to be, I believe,
In
1 million
one
records inside the United States or something like that.
One territory, yeah.
Yes. So it's not a bad feat, considering that it was done for $5,000. We did it in 4 days, and it was mostly just having some fun. And of course, that was great because there was no pressure. Had we known, oh, you're going to sell 1 million copies of this, then you'd be like, oh shit, we better rehearse more.
Still makes me laugh my ass off.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, Charlie, don't start it. Hey, Charlie, don't start it. Hey, Charlie, don't start it. That's like part of the whole thing, and people are getting their panties in a bunch over other songs. And
some people, I think, like to, I don't know how to say this. Some people go out of their way to criticize stuff like that so they can impress their friends or something. So I don't know.
Well, I'm proud owner of the vinyl and the T-shirt, the OG. It's a washcloth, but
right.
It's the white shirt you guys had. It's see-through,
right?
And I've seen like bootlegs and reissues of it, and I'm probably going to have to break down and get one of those because I want to wear it.
No, it's great that you still got that. It's even great that it hasn't fallen apart too.
Yeah.
Well,
it just hangs in the closet. It doesn't.
Right.
Can't. If I were to, hey, check this.
Right.
Dust.
It's like pixie dust.
Yeah. Dust.
Did you tour with Motorhead and the Plasmatics on that S.O.D. record? Speak English?
No, that was just we did a show with Wendy O and Motorhead and the Cro-Mags at the Ritz in New York. Oh. That's where, if you saw that thing, that was just that was a Rock Hotel show, which was there was a promoter in New York, Chris Williamson, who put on shows at the Ritz, and he would put on various like really interesting lineups. So that one, it was Motorhead, Wendy O. Williams, S.O.D, and the Cro-Mags. So
I think that's a
that's
perfect
a great
billing.
lineup. Did you get to spend any time with Wendy O?
I met Wendy O briefly, and ironically now since I have moved to Rochester, New York from New York where I grew up, and she is actually from like what you would call a suburb of this area.
Yeah, the same 6th grade teacher.
In fact, she and my lovely wife had the same 6th grade teacher.
Wow.
Not the same year, however. But I met Wendy O and briefly, I didn't like party or anything. I just saw her when she was on the way out, and we were like, "Hey, Wendy, just wanted to say nice and German." And like, "Oh yeah, you guys were great. Blah blah blah. Take it easy." That was about it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Man, I could talk all day about that Speak English or Die album, but we should move on.